So thank you for the introduction. So the name of my presentation is pretty different from the one that is on the program. So in this presentation, I will present the FOGRO technique. So FOGRO stands for first order approximation. And the previous name, like the name in the original paper is TINY, so I put TINY in the title. And the purpose of this presentation is to put this method back in the context of neural architecture search, or NAS, and in particular to compare it with two other one-shot strategies. So I will define all those terms. So the presentation will be separated into three parts. So first, I will explain what is neural architecture search. I will recall the main definition. So Guillaume a little bit talked about it this morning, but I will just put some keywords. Then I will go deeper into the FOGRO technique. So FOGRO technique is the technique that uses the functional gradient to develop the loss. So this is the quantity V nabla of this morning. And also you have the projection of V nabla. So I will use those notation. And in particular, I will show what are the formulation for the new neurons. So when we add neurons, how we really initialize them. And I want to compare this initialization with two other growing strategies, which are the GradMax and the North method. And in this part, I will really insist on the similarity between those methods and our method, and in particular, how the philosophy of those methods can be retrieved in the initialization strategies. And for the last part, if I have the time, I will insist on the main difference between the FOGRO technique and the two other ones, by proving that we can move away from this first order approximation setting that is imposed by the functional gradient. Because when you follow the functional gradient, it's like following the gradient descent. You stay in the first order approximation setting. And I will show that we might want to move from this setting because it enjoys very nice properties. So first, what is neural architecture search? So neural architecture search is when you wonder what architecture you should use when you try to solve a specific task. So it's not something that is straightforward because actually it can be summed up with this optimization problem. That is, you try to minimize the loss. So you have an objective function that is to minimize the loss. And you try to minimize the loss jointly on the architecture of your network, but also on its parametrization. So just a quick reminder, you have your input X that you multiply by a matrix omega. It gives you another vector. Then you apply the non-linearity. You have another vector. Then you reapply a matrix here, and you do it multiple times. So neural architecture search is wondering how many times I should perform this type of operation, but also if my X is in RD, then the matrix here should be in RD times something. And the question, what is the second size of my matrix? Neural architecture search is wondering about this question. And so it can be summed up with this optimization problem. But actually, you can see that the architecture space is a discrete space in a sense that if you choose to add a layer somewhere, or if you decide to add a neuron, it's a choice you have to make. And you cannot really apply a standard optimization procedure to move inside this architecture space. But what you can do still is that if you fix the architecture, you can still try to minimize on its parameter. That is, you try to find what is the best parametrization for this fixed architecture. So how people usually deal with this type of optimization problem is that they separate this optimization into a two-step procedure. That is, first, I fix the architecture, and then I minimize the loss on its parametrization. But the way it is reshaped, so how this problem is reshaped, really condition the way you will solve the problem. So a typical way to solve that is that you choose a specific architecture in the search space, then you stop, you optimize its parameter, you observe what is the performance of your network with this architecture and the best parametrization, and you say, okay, maybe I should add some neurons here, maybe I should perform more operation. And so you go to another place in your architecture space and you redo the same operation. And what really takes time in neural architecture search, it's really this multiple training that you have to take an architecture, then train it, then take another one, then train it again. And so it really takes a lot of time. And so you have a new category of method, which are called the one-shot techniques, that tries to come back to the first formulation of the problems. That is, they don't separate the optimization problem into two parts. They really try to optimize the architecture and its parameterization at the same time. So they really try to come back to this first formulation. So inside this category, which are the one-shot techniques, you have a lot of different subcategories. I will only talk about the gradient-based method. So a gradient-based method is a method that will jointly optimize the architecture and its parameterization using the back product of backpropagation. So as it was defined this morning, the backpropagation is the algorithm that performs the gradient descent on your computer. So to compute the gradient descent, your computer is making a lot of operation. If it happens that to update your architecture and your parameter, you use one of these back product of those compute, then you are a gradient-based method. And of course, you can intersect between those different subcategories. So you can be a super network, but you can also be a gradient-based method at the same time. Yes, I just wanted to give an example of a super network. A super network in a neural architecture search, it's a really simple approach to solve an architecture, is that you take a huge architecture, you train it, and then you remove the useless layer at the end. So you find a subgraph that is optimal, but that is really going from huge to small. And what we do with our method is we are going the other way around, is that we go from small to big. So now I will define how we initialize the new neurons with the foreground method. And in particular, I will compare this initialization with two other methods. And I will really insist on the similarity between those three. So just to give some notation, I will only consider the feed-forward setting because the notation are really simple. I consider the dataset X, Y, the architecture calligraphic A. I note the output of the network F theta, but you have to know that it's, the theta is the parameterization of the specific architecture you are in. You have the loss function, which is calligraphic L. And I will use the notation B and A, so A for pre-activation and B for post-activation. So you start your network with X, which is B0. You apply the matrix W. You have the pre-activation A. You apply the nonlinearity. You have the post-activation A, B, etc. And the end of the network is just F theta, which is given by BL. So in the Foguereau technique, when we want to increase the size of the network, we solve what we call the expressivity bottleneck. That is, we look at a specific layer and we want to go into the direction of the derivative of the loss according to AL. So maybe the notation when you derive according to a function is not very clear, but when you derive the loss, okay, I will not it like that because it's Jacobian, but when you derive according to F, it's the same as stating I derive according to U, then I take U, there is a resonance, U equal F of X. So when you derive the loss function F of X minus Y like this, you replace it like by U, you derive according to U, and then you replace U by F of X. Because sometimes it's a little bit strange to derive according to a function, but it's just a notation. So at each layer, we will consider the derivative of the loss according to the activation function. So you have X, and you have your matrix here, W, and we consider the derivative according to the pre-activation function because the sigma only happened after, and here is B. And so what we want to do is to minimize the distance between the possible update and this desired update. That is, we want to either modify the architecture such that the functional movement that will be induced in this pre-activity goes into the derivative of the loss according to this activity. And when we will modify the network, we will modify the network such that the functional movement induced by such modification of architecture will bring to AL a functional movement that goes into the direction of this derivative. So when, so of course we do not, we always minimize on a given mini batch, so we don't have the full distribution here. And when you update when you don't increase the size of the network, but just you update its current parameter, you could consider moving the parameter of all your network. But actually, if you consider this setting, solving the expressivity bottleneck on the top will be a non-convex optimization problem. So what we do is just that we consider movement of parameter of the weight matrices that is just before the activation AL. So when just updating the current architecture, we solve the expressivity bottleneck this way. And when we add neurons, we consider adding neurons only at layer L-1 with input weights alpha and output weights omega. And as we are in the first order approximation setting, we will consider that the alpha and the omega are small enough so you can remove the nonlinearity sigma in the middle. So if you replace it, so if we go back to the equation, when we are updating the current network, we consider the equation on the top, that is, we try to minimize the functional update when we modify the weight matrices just before A. And when we add neurons, we add neurons with matrix A and omega, which are just the concatenation of the neuron you add. So if I add one neuron, A is like that, but if I add k neuron, the matrix is like that. And actually, when I add neurons, I will not consider VNABLA as before, because I want that the neuron I add perform a functional update that is in some sense orthogonal to the current architecture. So I don't want that the V that is induced by the new neuron on the second equation tries to fit with VNABLA if a part of VNABLA could already be done by the current architecture. So what I do is that I take VNABLA, and I remove from this vector or matrix, depending if you consider on one specific input or on a batch, I will remove BL-1 multiplied by what my first equation gives me, which is delta W star. That is, I remove from this direction what I can already do with the current architecture. And I will try to add neurons to follow these projected directions. So if you use the notation, the first equation that is just minimizing actually a linear regression of VNABLA on BL-1, while the second one is just regressing the projection of VNABLA, but on BL-2. So if you look at the solution for delta W star and omega star and A star, you retrieve actually the formulation of a linear regressor. Okay, so that. So now I want to compare those initialization with two other techniques, which are the GradMax and the North method. So in GradMax and North method, they proceed the same way. It means that they take a thin network and they add neurons at specific layer. And what is funny is that actually the GradMax method set the input weights to 0, and they try to find what are the best output weights. And the North method is setting the alpha, the omega, the output weights to 0, and they try to optimize on alpha. And what we will show is that our output weights resemble to the GradMax one, and our input weights resemble to the North one, with differences. So the philosophy of GradMax is to accelerate the training. That is, they want to train the network as fast as possible. And to do that, they know this equation on first order approximation. That is, if I update my network from theta to theta plus delta theta, I have this first order approximation setting. And if I replace delta theta by what I should, what gradient descent tells me to do, it just gives me this equation. So gradient descent, it's another way of seeing gradient descent, but this is what gradient descent do. That is, it tries to minimize the first order approximation of the loss, actually. And so what they observe is that with their initialization, they perform the same first order approximation. Here, they replace the delta omega and delta A by their gradient. They observe that actually this derivative is equal to 0 because actually when you derive according to omega, you are still multiplied by the alpha, which is set to 0. So this is equal to 0, and you can remark that actually this norm is a function that is quadratic in omega. So GradMax says, okay, let's put the omega such that it maximizes its gradient norm. And we will put a constraint on the norm of the parameter omega. So if we replace with the notation that I had before, it is just the matrix product between BL minus 2 and the desired update, which is V nabla. Okay? And I will note this, the matrix N. And if we go back to Fogro initialization, so I just transpose, so in the, previously it was omega A transpose, so here I just transpose the solution. And you can see that actually our solution really resembles to the GradMax one, and actually you can prove that our output weights is the solution of such minimization problem. And it seems strange because in some sense, it seems that our solution also tries to minimize the loss at first order, but this is not what we aim to do at the beginning. We try to follow the derivative of the loss according to the activity, but it seems that it has a link between this our minimization problem and decreasing the loss. So I rewrite using the notation, and here the difference between n and n proj is just that n is B L minus 2 V nabla. I think there is a transpose somewhere. While N proj is just B L minus 2, but the projection here. We have projected the desired update. And actually, it comes from the fact that when you try, but Theo also presented this proposition, is that when you try to minimize the quantity between two objects, it is the same as trying to maximize their scalar product, but under a constraint on the norm of one of the objects on which you make the minimization. And actually, if you add the neurons by A and omega, and you do a first order approximation here, that is, you add the neurons alpha and omega, and you say, well, omega, and you look what is the functional update you are doing here, and you do a first order approximation, you do a first order development in this increment, you have this equality, first order approximation. So in some sense, what we do is also trying to minimize the loss at first order. Just before we do not use V nabla directly, we project it to make sure that what we add is in some sense orthogonal to what the current architecture can already do. And so if you, just to sum up everything, so GradMax formulation, it tries to find the output weights which maximize this norm, while we actually do this minimization problem. And the matrix S actually comes from the fact that our constraint on the first problem doesn't lie in the same space as GradMax, because GradMax is putting a constraint on the parameter space, while we put a constraint on the functional space. Because omega A transpose B is actually the functional increment that happens here. So now let's compare to North. So North is setting the output weight to 0, and they try to find the perfect input weights. And they have two solutions for that. So their goal is not to decrease the loss as fast as possible, but their goal is more to increase the span of some functional space. And for that, they have two methods. The first method is to say, when I add a neurons, I want to make sure that this new neuron is orthogonal to the two other ones. So if you put the vectors which corresponds to each neuron at activation A L-1, you want this new input weight to be orthogonal to the span of these vectors. But this initialization is not interesting for our method. But they have another initialization strategy. They say, okay, instead of only looking as an orthogonality metric in the parameter space, I will rather look for an orthogonality in the functional space. That is, I want to make sure that the function that is described by the new neuron is actually orthogonal or actually linear independent from the other functions that are described at the previous, so at the neuron that were in the current architecture. And to do so, they initialize the input weight this way. So you retrieve the matrix S here, the B L-2, but here you have the kernel of the activity space, which is A L-1. And what they do is they try random direction into that kernel. And so if you compare with our method, actually, you can show that our method, the input weight can be reformulated this way. So you retrieve the same first matrices, but instead, we are taking the most interesting direction to decrease the loss for AL, while they try random direction just to increase the span of function of the pre-activity. Yes, it's I use initialization because what they do is not the exact projection. They took random vector in the kernel, they concatenate them, and then they project on this basis. But it's basically doing the same thing. It's like the exact projection, because what we do is the exact projection on the kernel of BL-1. Okay, so looking with this sum up table, you can really see that our input weight really resembles to the North method, but we are really taking the most interesting direction. While with GradMax, we have this, we don't want to be redundant with the current architecture. And furthermore, we have a constraint that lies into the functional space and not into the parameter space. I go for the last part. I will show that if you want to actually maybe find a strategy, because with the thing that I described just before, you know for a given layer, if you want to add neurons, how to initialize it. But if you have to decide between different layers, you don't really know which one should be preferred to be increased first. So I will show that actually if you stay in the first order approximation setting, the information you have is not enough to decide the strategy, and you might need to take into account what is the real impact of your neuron on your network. So to do that, we will just use an amplitude factor. That is, we will modify the amplitude of the input weights and the output weights we have, because in the setting, we have solved the problem considering that alpha and omega are small, but now we will just modify their amplitude. And I don't have this equation here. But you will not have this first order approximation setting because gamma is supposed to be greater than 1. Just a remark that for the two other methods, you cannot really perform that just because as they multiply one part of their new neuron to 0, whatever is your amplitude factor, you will not see any impact on the loss. So to show you that you might need more information than only the first order approximation, I want to compare two strategies on a naive dataset. The first strategy is to say, okay, at each layer, I will compute the best neuron to add. And between those layers, I will compare the scalar product between the update, the functional update that is induced by the new neuron and scalar product with the desired update. Because when I perform a first order approximation, I have this scalar product. But what you will have is that if you retransform the scalar product between a layer L and between the layer L plus 1, you will see that you will have this matrix K, which make the comparison between those two scalar products kind of meaningless. And this matrix K depends actually on the weight matrices of your network, and it artificially amplifies or desamplifies your scalar product depending on the depth you are in. It's just an intuition, but I will show you empirically that it doesn't work. So this is the first strategy, to decide to add neurons where the scalar product is the highest. And you have another method which with which you will, so at each layer you estimate your best neuron to add. For each of them, you will, I didn't presented gamma star. Gamma star, where is, gamma star, it's here. So you can, with an amplitude factor, you can decide, you can set the best amplitude factor as the one which decreases the loss your most on a given batch. So for example, you start with a little gamma, you increase it, you see how behave the loss. You know that close to 0, it will decrease the loss. So you continue increasing gamma, and once the loss re-increase, then you stop and you have your best amplitude factor. And so the other strategy is just that you, at each layer, you estimate the best neuron. For each of them, you estimate the best amplitude factor, and you estimate their associated decrease of loss, and you will select the layer where the decrease of loss is the better. So I have a little experiment to show you. So I take a feed-forward network with two hidden layers. So 1, 2. And so I have to decide at each step of my process if I have to add layer at the first or at the second layer. And for that, I will compare 3 strategies. The first one is the naive one, which really adds neurons in the order of the layer. So it starts by adding neurons here, then it adds a neuron at the second layer, then it goes back to the first, etc. This is the first strategy. Then I have the second one, which I call the max eigenvalue, but it is the one that compares, so eigenvalue. In fact, this is the one that compares the scalar product, which is the first order approximation I have. I call it this way because we have shown that actually this scalar product is equal to the eigenvalue of some matrices S and N that we already computed to have the neurons. So we have directly access to those eigenvalues, and we don't have to recompute the scalar product. And I have the last strategy that actually for each layer compute the best neuron, the best amplitude factor, and it estimates what is the decrease of loss associated to this neuron addition with the best amplitude factor. And here is the result. So first look at the bottom plot. So you have the number of parameters as the x-axis, and you can see the accuracy. So it's kind of a Pareto front. For each number of parameters, you can estimate what is the accuracy of the network for the different strategies. And so you can see that the naive strategy is kind of in the middle of the two curves. And you have on the top the strategy that is based on the amplitude factor, while on the bottom plot, at least at the beginning of the experiment, you have the strategy that is based only on the first order approximation setting. And in fact, it really comes from the fact that you cannot compare the scalar product of the first layer with the one on the second layer, because you will have this matrix K, which really amplify your scalar product from one layer to another. and it makes the comparison between layers meaningless. Okay, so I think moving out from the first order approximation is really a key point. First, because it accelerates the training, because instead of adding your neurons with very small amplitude, you can really amplify them and observe a real impact on the loss. You can better compare the impact of the new neuron on the loss at different layers, so you might be able to construct a strategy to choose at which layer you should add neuron first. But actually, of course, this method is more resource demanding because you have to evaluate the loss on different amplitude factors. But in fact, you have statistical property that makes that the loss converge very fast. So you don't need a batch that is, you can estimate the amplitude factor on a small batch. Okay, thank you.